Let's start with that addicted. I can't think about anything but that person. That's the dopamine. That's the rush that you need, and you need more and more of that person. And if you are not in their energy field and experiencing their scent and their voice, then your body kind of gets a little bit down and deflated. So you just dream about getting that dopamine fix as well. So there's that. But in terms of the beaming feeling, that tends to happen when the heart is open as well. So somebody that is just having primal or carnal sex will not have a glow as much as someone whose hearts are open and syncing up. And according to the HeartMath Institute, who have done quite a lot of research over the sovereignty of the heart as an intelligence center compared to the mind. And the Institute discovered that not only does the heart have 40,000 more neurons than the brain, it emits 5,000 times rather higher magnetic field. And that when people are in heart alignment, it creates a sense of resonance. So it's a sense of familiarity. And so when this heart energy, and the heart produces a lot of feel-good chemicals in our bodies as well. It is a big generator of serotonin. When our heart is synced up with another, plus adding that 5,000 times more magnetic effect, we almost become high, like on a natural drug. And that's why we're beaming and we're glowing, because when we think in reverse, what stress and aging do to us, cortisol, it kind of contracts and shrinks us, and it takes all our life force and kind of pulls us in and shrivels us. Whereas these chemical reactions are almost a reversing of aging, an amplifying again of our cells, of our hormone systems. Amazing sex and love produce more estrogen, and so we are more fertile with that energy. So our whole body is kind of like lit up by the chemical process that are happening because the heart is engaged. And if the sex is satisfying, which is a big component of it, then when we're building up sexual energy quite often, then that too has incredible effects across all physical markers, from an improved cognition rate because of the heart-mind connection. It creates a whole brain functioning, which relaxes the nervous system. It improves immunity. It has a flow-on effect by harmonizing the body and the mind. And so, the whole brain functioning is what has a flow-on effect to every other part of us.
So I want to kind of jump to some of the things that you could share with us that, without possibly doing an entire course on Tantra, some of the things that you would recommend to your clients, because you are a coach for femininity, cognitive behavior. You're a cognitive behavioral coach as well. So I'm really curious as to what are some of the techniques you teach your clients.
Yes, well, there are actually a lot of very happy people in relationships who are living longer, as you say, but who are not entirely sexually empowered. And there is an upper limit to what we think sex is, or normal, or pleasure is, because it is only recently that this exploration of our primal intelligence is seeing the light. And that is because, first we had, the mindset revolution that, thoughts become things, and your thinking is very important, and thoughts shape everything. But then people were still kind of experiencing stored trauma in the body. Then we went down into, the heart space and emotional intelligence and living from the heart and exploring the importance of the heart as an intelligence and spiritual gateway. And yet things were still like missing a little bit. And then finally, we go sort of into the depths of the sexual exploration and realizing, okay, maybe there is something more to it. And that is the awakening of primal intelligence. And the first thing that I start with my clients is just the realization that such a thing exists. That
You're right.
for
And like,
my,
if you don't accept that such a thing exists, where that's the first place, right? Acceptance and acknowledgement of it as an option.
exactly. And sometimes I ask women to put their hands on their womb and just connect, and they're like, oh, they never have done that. That these could be energy portals. You know, we look at the genitals as birthing or functional or maybe sexual pleasure domains, but to explore and understand and expand your view of yourself as a more energetic framework is already an incredible paradigm shift. And for people who are single, they start to enjoy their exploration of themselves in whole new subtle ways, and that the definition of pleasure can expand beyond our sexual organs or our genitals, and that sensuality and our, I'm touching my hand for a reason here, our energetic field is so subtle that something as simple as brushing your palm with your fingertips can be pleasurable, and tickling the back of your own neck can be pleasurable. And if our body is an instrument of pleasure and an awakening of this electricity, then what does that mean in partnership? What does that mean for other faculties in ourselves that can be seen as pleasurable? So by understanding that this primal intelligence is the core of who we are, and it informs everything else, and that it's very sensuality based rather than sexuality based, gives permission to a whole group of people, regardless of their age or relationship status or wellness status, to see themselves as erotic beings.
In terms of talking about climax and the sustenance of that electricity of pleasure, one of the things that I think is really interesting is that in for elite athletes, in performance, and also in a lot of therapy, there's this talk about abstinence and the power of abstinence, because so much of our energy is dissipated during climax or orgasm. And so, elite athletes are instructed not to have sexual experiences before a big game, or a lot of high performers in other fields talk about a period of abstinence where they really rebuilt their lives by taking sexual energy off the table as a menu item. What's the science behind that, and what are your thoughts and experiences around that topic?
Yeah, I would call that a non-tantric approach. So if you are not tantric, then you generally would not have the training or discipline to hold yourself in a slightly orgasmic state without getting more excited and without
Dissipating energy. Yeah.
Dissipating energy. Because when you look at why is semen life force? Because it creates life. It's lesser so for women, but again, there is a big spike to having an actual climax, and then the endorphins are up, but then there is a certain level of come down. So it can destabilize those very quick dopamine, a quick rush and a decline can really destabilize the nervous system. It's almost like when people go on antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication, the doctor says, come off it gently. So orgasms create a short-term hit of those positive processes. So boom, when we come down gently, it can be...
Well, the French call an orgasm a little death.
Yeah, petit mort. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, that I think what the French mean, however, is an absolution of the ego. So that's what I read in a recent French book recently, that it's a little death because you sort of absolve and you forget yourself.
I like that.
but I'm sure there is a biophysical process that happens with that. But back to your question, a more tantric approach would be to keep your sexual energy maybe at a 40% through touch, if you can, gently masturbate or dancing or just whatever it is that lights you up a bit and turns you on, so that your faculties are awakened, so that you are more alert and more on fire, but you're not so stoked and overheated that there may be that temptation to climax and to release that energy. So I think for safety purposes, especially for athletes for whom a lot is at stake, the expert definition is just don't go there at all, because you may not be able to stop yourself. But I think 20 to 40 to 50% sexual energy awakening is incredibly healthy, and I would choose that over complete dormant.
I'm curious as to what your thoughts are, and around pornography and the role that pornography plays to either enhance, inform, educate, or destroy, obscure, and misinform the development of pleasure and ageless sexual enjoyment. I've never heard of porn being made for that, features people in their 50s or 60s. I've never, I don't watch porn, but I've never heard of a lot of porn that people would say, yeah, that was really instructive. It really built a blueprint of what I'm now going to explore and enjoy. So I'm curious from your professional perspective, what you think is good or isn't good about pornography.
I must admit, when you asked me that question, I just had an immediate negative, visceral, almost traumatic reaction to it, because my previous experiences with porn, and also what I'm really observing porn is influencing in terms of the behavior of Generation Z, it doesn't feel integral or respectful, or as something that teaches us about pleasure and how women receive pleasure. It's just gratifying that dopamine animalistic itch in people. And I think porn is used so often now in our culture as a stress release. So it's not about erotica or being turned on. It's just bang, I want to see something intense.
It's transactional, I guess. It's I'm going to take, a can of Diet Coke out of the fridge, drink it. It's going to give me a caffeine boost. It's going to suppress my appetite. Boom.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just about that dopamine hit, and the dopamine, because of its intensity, Coke, sugar, and caffeine hit, overrides the stresses of the day. And a lot of people, I want to say men, but tend to be men, who are facing porn addiction today are actually not so much addicted to the porn, but just rather to the stress release and the dopamine, not the kind of content. But because of its dopamine hit, it becomes addictive, and it starts to link the imagery with the high. And that's why when people go into their own relationships, they tell themselves, or their mind tricks them, that unless they have that kind of fast, robust, whatever it is they've seen in the porn movie porn, then it's not good. They can't enjoy it. They can't have sex, even though there are so many other chemical, neurological reactions that happen during sex. There's oxytocin, there's serotonin, there's a whole host of other things, but the dopamine takes over. And I think that is very dangerous, because it limits everyone's expression around pleasure and connection. And when young people are seeing this, then this becomes locked in, and that's how they end up having sex for the rest of their lives, unless someone kind of stops them and goes, hey, wait a minute, what are you doing? This is, you're jackhammering, or where are you? You're not even with me. Having said that, I do know that there is a lot of feminist porn that is coming out, and I will confess that I've got a list of erotic podcasts that you can listen to, and porn made by women, and there's all sorts of, woke porn and different porn, but I haven't watched it, so I wouldn't know. But it is on my list just out of curiosity, and it is wonderful to see that for those who know that they're visually turned on or want to learn sex from different formats, that is available, and that we're even starting to edge open that door that, hang on, this isn't unhealthy, this is the McDonald's style of sexuality.